You don't have a cell phone?
Nah.
Good girl. The government didn't have to put tracking devices on us. We bought them and put them on ourselves. It'll be a matter of time.
Before what?
Before they put them in our brains.
Not to come off as Kyle Shebel, Timothée Chalamet's character from Lady Bird, but as someone from the last generation who remembers a time before high-speed internet and smartphones, I have begun to seriously think that maybe the internet was a mistake. But of course, that's a loaded statement. A lot of the times during these discussions about social media and technology, the two become conflated, when they're actually two different debates. And for me, it's not so much that the internet was a mistake. The internet in general, in my opinion, is a net positive. But rather, the more I use my smartphone and social media, the harder it is for me to find any merit in them. Well, at least as they currently stand, as extensions of capitalism that are purposely crafted to feed into our baser instincts in order to generate profit. As the 2020 documentary The Social Dilemma explained, social media apps are programmed to tap into our negativity bias and need to self-preserve by constantly feeding us things that will outrage us and scare us in order to keep us hooked, while also exploiting our need for dopamine and constant entertainment and fear of boredom or missing out. Not to mention the smooth surfaces of smartphones and their slot machine-like quality keep us using. And consequently, we always need the newest model, and smartphones themselves fall into planned obsolescence. I remember at one point being so naive that I actually thought that after the iPhone X was released in 2017, Apple would stop making new phones. It doesn't get any better than this, right? Just because we can make new models doesn't mean we need to, right? But that kind of logic doesn't jive with capital interests. And thus, here are some new iPhone models that are just slightly different from the last, but exuberantly more expensive. Yay. And none of what I'm saying hasn't been said before. It's no secret that with the rise of social media and smartphones that life has gotten a bit more complicated. Now we can't escape work emails or what your friends are doing without you, or even watch a movie without taking out our phone. Either again out of boredom or to document it because if you don't post it online, did it even happen? If other people can't look at you in awe and envy, what's the point? Our smart devices are both a source of pain and pleasure. They're used for work, but also for entertainment, and they become so integral to everyday life that you just cannot not have one. I even contemplated making this video because I feel like I don't really have anything to say that Bo Burnham's 3-minute song Welcome to the Internet hasn't touched on already, not to mention that every generation bemoans the new one. So there's nothing really novel in just airing my grievances about how the world has changed. With every new technology, there are people who become alarmists and say that this will be humanity's downfall. And eventually, with time, we look back on them and say, I can't believe some people decried the death of cinema when sound was introduced. Or isn't it ridiculous that some believe TV would be the end of movie theaters? Wait, isn't that actually happening? We'll get back to that. But I don't know, maybe I'm just scared of sounding old and bitter because who wants to be that guy? Who wants to become the person they hated? But maybe that's just everyone's fate. On the other hand, I also think that it's perfectly normal for older people to be scared of the new and unknown. When things are unfamiliar to us, we tend to get defensive because it feels like a personal attack, as if our experiences in youth are somehow inferior. At times it is just jealousy. Like when older people talk about how soft this generation is, when maybe we're the first generation in a long time to actually delve into how effed up the world is, and how we shouldn't just be expected to take it because that's how the world works. I really can't stop quoting Bo Burnham in this video, huh? But with all that said, I do want to argue a bit that the past without smartphones and constant access to the internet and social media, that life was better, or at least a little bit less draining. And of course, if you happen to have a counter argument, I'd love to read them down below. I personally think that if we stopped at the creation of the internet and computers and didn't integrate the internet into our phones and cars and TVs, we'd still be able to connect with people from around the world and socialize and get news, etc., but it wouldn't be so ingrained into our lives that we have trouble focusing on basic tasks without thinking about what we're missing out on our phones. The internet has always had an addictive quality, but at least you had to physically sit down and use it, and it stayed in one place, rather than follow you constantly from school to work to home to the toilet to your bed, etc. Now there's no place where you can't see terrible things 24/7, and that's kind of exhausting to me. No matter how well you curate your feed, you're still going to be exposed to horrendous shit either on your own timeline or your For You page that you can't mentally prepare yourself ahead of time for. Whereas when social media apps weren't your place for both news and entertainment, you could have more of a delineation from where you would derive pleasure and pain and knowledge. And when cell phones were first invented, They too had their games and texts that you constantly felt like you had to check, but at least there wasn't a constant stream of information being thrown at you at all hours of the day. Back before smartphones, you had a CD player or an MP3 player, a digital camera, and your cell phone. And in it had an address book and numbers, and you could receive calls and texts and sometimes work emails. Apps were in their infancy and slow and clunky to use. Remember internet phone browsers? And because we had separate devices for each thing, you could focus on one thing at a time, like listening to music or sending a text or taking a photo. But now with everything in one device, simple tasks become overwhelming. And sometimes you open your phone and you forget what you wanted to do in the first place because your phone gets so distracting. Even though it was annoying and hard to carry all of these things around, it at least made doing each thing more intentional. Now we have the ability to store thousands of photos, but how many of those photos do you even develop at the end of the day? Or are they just taking up space in your phone? I feel like in some ways we've all become digital hoarders just because we can, just because we have the cloud and more storage capabilities, but maybe we shouldn't have the infinite ability to store things. Maybe we should have limits. This dilemma reminds me of Andy Warhol's Marilyn diptych, which was made to contrast Monroe's personal life with her public persona, but also how, with the repetition of each image, how she loses her power. How Marilyn lost her power with how famous she became because her photo, her own image and physicality lost its true meaning after years of being reproduced and repurposed until it wasn't even hers anymore. And that's kind of how I see our ability to do so much with our smart devices. We have the ability to say anything we want, to take millions of photos, but maybe things were more intentional when we couldn't do that. Maybe we could own our lives a bit more when we didn't feel the need to constantly post online and curate an identity based on other people's opinions. It makes me sad that I'm from the last generation that remembers a time without smart devices and high-speed internet because I don't think we'll ever get that time back. The organicness of life back then was something so special and we didn't even know it. And though back before recommendation algorithms and predictive AI, entertainment and news were still curated and ads were still targeted, at least it was being vetted by real people who we could hold more accountable, and everyone was subjected to the same ads and the same media, at least on TV and in print media. The internet, however, was algorithm free for just a decade or so. In 2003, Amazon's revolutionary recommendation algorithm was made to sell more books and keep people using the site, and it was just one of many algorithms to crop up and keep us online. From Facebook's friend recommendations to today's For You page, everything we get is curated and catered to us as individuals. So what I see online is very different from what you see online. My search results yield different results from yours, and the list goes on. And this is where capitalism rears its ugly head and how it started to ruin the internet. Corporations realized that with the help of algorithms, they could make being online even more addictive and sell more products and make more money. With the help of the facade of social media, they're able to harvest our user profile and sell our data to corporations for targeted ads. Social media went from being a place to express yourself and connect to an outrage machine to a place where you think you're curating your online persona when you're really just giving corporations everything they want for free. As many of you probably already know, we are the products of social media. We share our location with the government and corporations willingly like it's no big deal, and that's all by design. There goes my inner Kyle Schiebel again, I guess. To go back to my main point, due to the ever-pervasiveness of the internet through the use of smartphones, the intentionality of the internet is totally gone. Back when there was just desktops and the home computer, you had to use the internet with purpose, especially since it was so much slower back then. Using the internet was time-consuming, so you couldn't just spend hours on it without getting frustrated or bored with it. In addition, it was a communal activity. People would gather around the computer and watch videos or read their friend's profile, etc. Internet cafes were a thing. And sure, nowadays we send each other memes endlessly and there's Netflix and chill and people make dance videos together, but the experience is still highly individualized and isolating. Now everyone's feed from Twitter to Instagram to Netflix is highly curated for them. No one's For You page is the same, and thus the internet has kind of killed any sense of monoculture and has divided subjects ranging from pop culture entertainment to actual news into personalized experiences for engagement. But that also estranges us from one another because everyone is living in their own little reality. Social media in its infancy was awesome. It was a place to express yourself, connect with loved ones occasionally, and a few times a day check on what your friends were doing and post a funny status. But now with smartphones and the internet at your fingertips, it's become oversaturated with nonsense, mostly ads and outrage, and it's just exhausting. I miss the slow internet and older cell phones. Things move slower and we moved slower too. with more intention. Now, all we want is instant gratification, constant dopamine hits, and it's all there for us too, which is the saddest part. Living through our phones makes us crave instant gratification, but that doesn't translate to real life. Life isn't instant gratification. A lot of life is boring and filled with waiting, but that doesn't make it any less special or worth experiencing. And I think we as the consumers aren't to blame for the popularity of social media or smartphones because they're intentionally made to be addicting and they're doing a good job, but rather we need to bring purpose to them. Use social media and your phone in meaningful ways, not just to endlessly scroll because you're bored. And I'm saying all of this not just because those videos of like high school in the 90s and high school before social media are so popular, because a lot of the time we romanticize the past through nostalgic rose-colored glasses. When we say the past was better, we need to ask for who? Because usually for marginalized groups, the past really sucked. But I do think I can confidently say that life for most people before smartphones, before we were constantly online, before recommendation algorithms, life was better. And I miss that little window where we didn't know what the internet was. We just knew it was fun and cool, where it was something we did to purposefully connect with others, but not something we were addicted to or did out of boredom or spite. I especially miss TV before recommendation algorithms, where you just stumbled upon a movie that you might not even know the name of, but just watch it anyway because it looks interesting or because nothing else is on and you're bored. Now with the streaming model and recommendation algorithms, you constantly are reminded about all the movies that you aren't watching because you chose this movie, and it makes you anxious, or at least it makes me anxious. There's so many TV shows and movies to watch nowadays that it just makes you want to give up and rewatch something old and familiar that you don't need to pay too much attention to or that you know you already like. It's hard picking a movie or show nowadays because the platform is constantly showing you other things and other media that you're not watching and that you're missing out on. And if you get bored or don't like something, you can just click something else, when before you just had to sit through whatever was on, or at least you had to do that most of the time. Not to mention nowadays, even when you find a new show to watch, you have to wait like 2 years till the next season, and there's also a lot less episodes. And again, you don't even have to pay close attention to what you're watching because you can just rewatch it as many times as you want to. So while you're watching, you can scroll and distract yourself and continue to make other platforms money. Like the internet before smartphones, even watching TV was done with more intention. You couldn't just tune in anywhere with an internet connection. You had to physically sit in front of a TV at a certain time and pay attention because you wouldn't be able to see the episode again unless you caught it on a rerun or found it somewhere online. There was, of course, the physical copies you could get later on, or if you were lucky, you could DVR it. And that's another thing I miss, physically owning things. I was watching one of my favorite movies on Netflix, Catch Me If You Can, which was taken off the 16th of this month. And now it's off the platform for forever, I guess. So that's great. You get all of these options, but none of the control. And that's to say nothing of how the workers at these streaming companies are treated, how actors get little to no residuals, how animators are laid off inexplicably. And now we have to pay for every channel and pay not to see ads. Like, what's even the point anymore? I don't know. Maybe I'm just a grumpy millennial, but I really do wish we could go back before the internet was in every single device we own. And I think what scares me more is how fast technological advances are happening. The widespread use of the radio lasted 30 years from the 20s to the 50s until TV eventually phased it out. But with the internet, it evolved in a matter of less than 2 decades. In the early 2000s, we had the introduction of social media sites and high-speed internet. In the 2010s, we were using social media apps. And now in the 2020s, predictive AI is being used in actual ads. We went from thinking that cell phones could give you cancer to boomers willingly believing everything they see online. The hundreds of thousands of sites on the internet have now been reduced to 3 apps owned by 2 companies. We're told to not text and drive, and yet cars have built-in tablets right next to the steering wheel. Like, what is wrong with this picture? In all, I don't think the internet was a mistake. I don't even think social media was a mistake, but I do think smartphones in general are a net negative because now we have no downtime. We're always thinking about scrolling or wanting to scroll or wanting to post. We don't want to be bored anymore, and I get it, who wants to be bored? But maybe we should be bored because in the end, our constant use of the internet is just making the rich richer, giving them more of our information for free, viewing their ads, buying their stuff, sending them our location, etc. The internet is awesome and I'm all for computers, but small handheld devices that are purposely made to be addicting and that are now integral to society for work and school and news and play, I don't know about that. Thanks for watching, everyone. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been using a teleprompter for this video. Maybe you have noticed. I decided to pull it out for this second channel video just to test it out, to see, how it works. And I hope that you liked it and that it wasn't too distracting. And yeah, sorry I haven't been posting on this second channel as much. I've been really focusing on my video essays for my main channel, but those haven't been doing well, so I'm going to kind of take a break from them and start working more on the second channel and make more, casual videos that are less research heavy. And actually this video that you guys just watched was going to be a main channel video, but then I felt like I didn't have any thesis like I talked about in this video. Bo Burnham kind of already summed up my feelings about the internet in the song Welcome to the Internet, but I just thought I'd give my 2 cents here as, a grumpy millennial. It all happened to you, and it definitely happened to me, unfortunately. I guess that's all of our fates as adults, maybe. But yeah, let me know what you thought about this one down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.